Hi, I'm Reggie Foster, Public Information Officer for Custer County, and today we're on a journey to learn more about the proposed Justice Center. And joining us is Custer County Court Judge Amanda Hunter. Hey, Amanda.
Hi, Reggie.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
Here we are in this courthouse that has been serving Custer County since the 1920s. And we've done some adjustments here and there, so it's kind of patched together, patchwork architecture, I guess you would call it. So we're getting by.
We are.
What are the concerns with the courthouse as it is today?
The biggest concern is a safety concern, lots of safety concerns. And these safety concerns also spill over in a courtroom setting to a question of decorum and integrity of the proceedings. So for an example, our juries, when we have a jury trial in this courtroom, the jury sits right here in the jury box and listens to the evidence. But at the conclusion of the case, they go into the break room, which is across the hallway from the courtroom, and deliberate there. And the trouble with that room is it's the break room available to the entire courthouse. And so it's got two different doors on it. We have one bailiff, Sergeant Halpin, who is sworn to an oath to make sure that nobody disturbs that jury or infiltrates those deliberations. And that's very hard to do when you have a back door on the back end of that room, in terms of jurors leaving and then also in terms of potentially people coming in. We also have another example. I refer to them as shared circulation routes. So, for example, on a busier day in the court, we have criminal dockets throughout the month. We'll have numerous defendants and their family members. We'll have even more at times victims of all of those offenses charged and their family members. We have prosecutors, we have defense attorneys, we have the court, the judge, the court staff. All of these people are in this very tight space. And that is somewhat managed here in the courtroom, but it's really quite different outside. So each of the attorneys, the prosecutor and the defense attorney, will meet with all of those defendants and victims in their cases to talk about what they're doing in court that day. We give a room to the prosecutor, which is just outside the courtroom, and then about 20 feet away on the other side of the clerk's office, that is the room that we give to defense counsel, where they can meet with their clients to talk about the case. And so what you end up with is the clerk's office is in the middle, where you have people coming and going to pay their fines and handle their particular matters. And then you have these attorneys meeting with their respective participants, and they're all talking about offenses, sometimes violent offenses or sexual assaults. And it's incredibly emotionally charged. And all of these people are right there mingling next to one another in a tight space. And that creates an obvious security concern for somebody that wanted to cause harm, or for somebody who simply had an outburst given the nature of what they're dealing with. But it also really erodes the decorum and the integrity, not only of the proceedings, but for those participants. Victims should be able to come to court and not feel intimidated. They should feel comfortable and be able to be a part of the proceedings without having to be in such close proximity with their alleged attacker. Similarly, defendants should be able to be in court and not suffer any kind of harassment or retaliation from other people who might be there in the courthouse while they're there handling their criminal case. Another good example, we bring any defendant that's in custody, we bring them over from the sheriff's office, and they come in the front door of the courtroom, and they come right up that main aisle that is in the gallery, which is filled with participants and members of the public coming to court, often victims, members of their family, and they're right there, literally arm's reach away from those defendants. The defendants are shackled, but the members of the public are not, and that creates a security concern, and it also touches on that question of dignity for the various participants in our proceeding as well. Also, the building on the whole is not ADA compliant throughout, and so those are also concerns with the various operations of the courthouse. And that applies, that's not simply a thing we want to provide to elder members of our population. I mean, there's a lot of people that come into the courthouse, young and old, that need to know that that building is going to work with their wheelchairs and their walkers so that they can get in and get out comfortably and safely.
So we've talked about security as an issue, just the whole decorum and integrity of the current situation is an issue. We're not ADA compliant. We're sharing space, as you mentioned, with other county employees who use this facility, and sometimes they're hampered from using the things, the offices, the buildings, the rooms that they need. But we're getting by. We're doing okay. So why do we need to build a justice center now?
Well, we are getting by, in some ways better than others, but the benefit of being out ahead of this cannot be oversold. We have this building, it's working, but it's starting to not work, and it's a big process to build a new justice center. And we don't want to get ourselves in a position where literally, walls are caving in, or more likely we're facing some sort of external force, litigation, or something where we're having to shut parts of the building down and then it's just not usable at all. That puts us in a real bind, and people who might be bidding on a job to build a justice center are more likely to know that then. Now we have some comfort room. We know we need to do this. The problems aren't going away. They're only going to get bigger. But we're out ahead of this enough that we can enjoy some flexibility in surveying all of our options, making conservative decisions, making informed decisions. And so it's not something we can kick down the road to a further date without losing a lot of those benefits of being able to make good, sound decisions as it relates to this project, which is very much needed.
And a lot of research has gone into this. The Justice City Center Committee has been working on this for 3 years, and there's a lot of research that's gone into where we're at now.
There is. We've had architects and various other professionals involved from the start when we conducted our initial needs assessments to identify and analyze the vulnerabilities in this building, and even through the process of designing the current prototype of the Justice Center. We had those construction professionals involved, but we also had our own local professionals involved. Myself and my court staff, Sheriff Byerly and his deputies, probation, all of the professionals in the Justice Center setting that use the Justice Center were involved in that with their experience and what they need, absolutely need, and distinguishing between what they'd like versus what they absolutely need to get their job done safely, and then bounced off of architects who can talk about how to build that in a way that it meets the growth needs of a community, so that we can build the right size building at the cheapest price point that we can get.
I think many of us think, well, I don't really use the courthouse. I don't really use the justice system right now, so it's kind of hard to stomach paying for it. Can you address that and what you've seen?
Sure. I think a lot of people can relate to not ever using their courthouse, but it's important for their community, and they should want that for their community to know that it's there, for their fellow community members to use, for anybody who comes to our community to have them see that it's there, and we have the facilities and the proceedings being handled and done as they should, available to them, is more than just a feather in the county's cap. It's part of our basic infrastructure and something that we should strive to have.
It's not just criminal cases.
It's
I think
not.
a lot of people think that way. It's the courthouse is for criminal cases, but it can affect all of us in our everyday lives.
That's very true. Our criminal docket is a big portion of what we do, but it's certainly not the extent of it. There are a lot of civil matters, civil lawsuits that come through these doors. There's also matters of probate, settling of people's estates, as well as domestic divorce cases, paternity cases, and other family relation cases that come through the courts that have significant ties to people's personal lives beyond just criminal cases.
Judge Hunter, do you have any final thoughts, any final word of advice or consideration for us?
I think that one of the nicest parts of this project is that this building, while it's not suiting all of the needs of the courts per se, it's certainly still a very viable place for the county. And so if the Justice Center is approved, then the courts would move out and this building would be in full given back to the county for its use. And there's a lot of uses that can be made of it. And so the building's not going anywhere, and all of the beautiful attributes of the building aren't going anywhere, and it will continue on as something to be used in Custer County and something to be proud of. And it will be almost right next door to our new Justice Center. And I just think that there's a really nice ring to that. And I'm hopeful that we all get to see it.
Judge Hunter, thank you for talking with us today.
Thank you, Reggie.
If you have questions, feel free to send us an email at justicecenter@custercountygov.com, or you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CC Justice Center.